Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for FMT's presentation of the first installment of our 3-day webinar series, Using NetSuite to Increase Manufacturing Efficiency. My name is Nick Enrico, and I am the Business Development Representative here at FMT Consultants, and I'm joined by FMT's VP of Consulting Services, Paul Clayton. If at any point during the presentation you have a question, feel free to type them into the comment box. We will be monitoring it during the entire presentation, and we will answer them at the end. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand it over to Paul. Paul?
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it and appreciate everybody joining us today. My name is Paul Clayton, VP Consulting Services. Been with FMT for about 19 years. Worked with multiple ERP solutions and many projects in the different ERP solutions. Just a little bit about who this webinar is for. It's really for the leaders of organizations for manufacturing business models. And businesses that really want to understand how NetSuite can help them in terms of making good accelerated business decisions, help them to reduce the costs of running their business, and really how to systematically gain efficiencies across their manufacturing functionality. The webinar is really not for folks who are looking for demo functionality or looking for really kind of deep dive into advanced NetSuite capabilities. We're certainly well equipped with our dedicated NetSuite practice to help you with anything. So at any point during this webinar, you have any questions about how FMT can help you from a NetSuite perspective, certainly let us know and we'll reach out to you. So today's objective is really, again, how to understand how NetSuite can actually help you operate as a business more efficiently, and start to talk about some things in terms of how to evaluate what is most important to you and your business to get to a point where you can bring a solution like NetSuite into play and really be efficient in terms of your whole manufacturing spectrum. So we'll cover a little bit more from an agenda perspective about the ERP landscape and as it's playing out today. Look at some manufacturing business challenges that we see most commonly. NetSuite solutions to really address those challenges and to gain efficiencies within your manufacturing environment. Talk a little bit about some of our customers and case studies from our implementation projects. Also talk about a solution assessment offering that FMT has that will help you evaluate where you stand at an enterprise business application level. Some of the typical traps that we see relative to implementations, and then we'll wrap up and talk a little bit about our next webinar within this series. So just looking back kind of at the ERP landscape as it stands today, really is a combination of on-premise and cloud-based solutions, but with a clear direction towards the pure cloud solutions. See a lot more and are implementing a lot more of those pure cloud-based solutions today. That's really happening because pure cloud-based solutions like NetSuite are driving better accessibility and mobility for its users, really driving seamless upgrades at much lower cost than your traditional on-premise solutions. They're more configurable and more adaptable from an end user perspective as well. We also see solutions within the ERP market becoming a little more verticalized and specialized. If you look at NetSuite, they have their own Suite Success SKUs, which are really based on and configured and really initialized right out of the box with a vertical in mind, say for wholesale distribution and manufacturing. So therefore, you have things that are built into the product immediately, like scorecards and metrics and KPIs that are specific to that vertical. Roles and permissions like warehouse manager that are specific, again, to the wholesale distribution and manufacturing SKU that they offer. Other verticals like subscription billing and deferred revenue, professional services organizations, software-based organizations. Again, those verticalized SKUs that are available and are geared towards producing data immediately, as soon as you go live on the product, to start helping you make better and more accelerated decisions within the business. ERP solutions today, really those like NetSuite you're going to see them as feature rich. well developed. The solutions that have been out there on the market for a while and are tried, true, and tested, and have tens of thousands of implementations and are installed in that level and that size of the customer base. They're going to be well-developed solutions that handle all the different business processes that we just mentioned, like wholesale distribution, manufacturing, professional services, the complex side of professional services and subscription billing models, that type of thing. But really, regardless of the business model, we need our systems to provide data visibility across all aspects of the business. Everyone within the organization, within that manufacturing business model, needs to be operating within a single unified platform and have one version of the truth. And we really need to leverage that type of system to bring standardization and control to our processes across finance, across inventory management, the supply chain, as well as customer engagement. So let's kind of begin now by discussing some of the challenges that manufacturing-based business models face today when using ERP solutions that really are not scaling with their business growth. One of the things I've highlighted there, no real-time visibility into stock levels. So as a result, that's going to produce production line delays. We're going to see decreased customer satisfaction because we're over-promising and under-delivering. Inaccurate inventory counts and valuation means unreliable reporting and eventually some potential write-offs relative to our inventory management because we're not getting the turnover ratios that we need because we don't have those KPIs and those business metrics in front of us. So solutions there that NetSuite really offers is a single view of inventory across all locations. In a multi-subsidiary, a multi-location environment. Offers up bin management. With bin management, we can really leverage that functionality for better tracking of, say, product disposition. If we have product that's in quarantine versus released versus expired, we can leverage bins to be able to track that status. NetSuite has BOM and routing configurations, which again allows better management of the raw materials and assemblies that we stock. We can also drive more accurate labor and material costing and variance reporting if we're in a standard cost model. NetSuite also has routine cycle count functionality and automation of that functionality as well. So that lends itself to the process being more mobile through RF scanning, where we can use those types of functions and scanning devices to process purchase order receipts, to process sales order fulfillments, to issue components to manufacturing orders, to process RMAs that are coming back from customers, and the ultimate replacement sales orders that we're creating to replace that product. And then, as I mentioned, you also get your cycle counting capabilities as well. So here on the screen, just to kind of support some of those solutions that we've been talking about, we have one report that we've exported out of the box, out of NetSuite, that is a current inventory snapshot. And really, you're just seeing, if we kind of drill into some of the aspects of this particular report, you're just seeing the total columns, but this particular report can actually show the items. We see the items here, we see the descriptions. We can have many more columns inserted into this particular report that will show the different locations and the information specific to those locations from an on-hand quantity perspective, on order, committed, in transit standpoint, and then have that all totaled up at the end of our report. We also have things like material shortage report. So material shortage report comes in handy and will show us our work orders. So we can see our work orders, production work orders, what status they're in, start dates, and then information relative to the quantities that we're short and the variance there. So we can understand where we need to potentially do some inventory transfers or start placing some purchase orders. So some different reports that are available there in terms of just being able to really see the data that's available across the organization and to be able to accelerate the decisions that we make relative to inventory management. Some of the other challenges that we've seen, an inability to ensure full track and traceability of a product. If you can't do that within your system, then you're bound to run into quality assurance issues. You're going to miss the tracking and tracing of critical attributes relative to a given lot or product, like what's its disposition, what's the supplier lot number, expiry information that you may want to associate with those lots. You're not going to see any systematic links between lot and serial tracked items and their movement. So the purchase order receipt, the sales order fulfillment, the inventory transfers. You won't see, with those transactions, you're not going to get the links that you would get through a solution like NetSuite to be able to know which lots or which serial numbers were transferred. When you received that product, know exactly which lots you received. When you fulfilled sales orders, which lots were actually sent out on those sales orders. Lack of controls and process repeatability and reliability will also be an issue when you don't have that full track and trace capability within your system. You need a system and a process that is for the users that is reliable and repeatable. If you have that, you're going to have confidence. Your users are going to have confidence, and your leaders within the organization will have confidence within your system and be able to again make good business and quick business decisions based on what the system is presenting to you. If you can't have full track and trace within your system, another issue that you're going to run into obviously is, I mentioned quality, but that leads to material review issues. So MRB sites within your solution are going to start filling up with product that you're going to need to look at and assess why you're having those quality issues. RMAs coming back from, product coming back from customers and lots of RMAs being issued and having to deal with that from a customer satisfaction perspective. So if we look at NetSuite, some of the solutions and functions that are available within NetSuite to really help us address that are a quality assurance module. So we have a quality assurance module within the NetSuite application that helps us track receiving and inline inspections. And we can apply kind of pass-fail tests against those transactions that help us maintain minimum quality standards to the product that we're receiving on POs and that we're producing from a manufacturing perspective. You also have workflows, approvals, as well as process controls, user security and permissions. All of those really combine and work together to ensure standardization. They also help ensure the repeatability that I was speaking about earlier. And then obviously it institutes controls within the process so that we know that we can depend on and rely on our system. So some of the things that really help drive that from a kind of an overall standpoint, overall picture in NetSuite. So we have our quality inspection tests. You can see here that we have different tests. If I kind of zoom in, we have different tests set up from a quality perspective for the product that we're producing or receiving. We can note here whether that inspection is an in-process or work order related inspection, or if it's incoming relative to purchase orders that we'll be receiving. If we're just measuring against a standard result, or if there's sampling that's required, and then many other aspects relative to setting up those tests and how we measure and monitor them. From a track and trace perspective, we also have reports like the component where used inquiry report or window, where I can see from a component perspective, if we come over here and we look at the component that enter the component that we're interested in inquiring on, we can see the different assemblies and sub-assemblies that particular component is being used within. And we can drill that down to a given location, or we can look at it from a kind of an overall all location perspective. And then we have things like our lot traceability fulfillment reports. We have this both from a sales order fulfillment standpoint as well as a purchase order receipt perspective. So here we're seeing all the product as well as the item fulfillment transactions and sales orders and lot numbers. So we're seeing what lot number went out on which transaction and what customer/sales order that it was associated to. So the last thing I want to talk about is, from a challenge perspective, is really no insight into inventory profitability. So if you've got those kinds of challenges with your system, you're not really going to know what is turning with inventory and what isn't turning. You know, you're going to have questions relative to are you using the appropriate inventory costing method? You know, are we capturing the true inventory value and cost of goods sold relative to what we're doing? Should we be using things like an inbound shipment management process if we're having to deal with our products being shipped from our source on containers and arriving within a specific container, particularly if you have multiple purchase orders within that container? You know, do we have functionality that can really handle that and address it? Furthermore, you're not going to be real confident in your pricing model. And, you know, does your pricing model really promote the expected gross margin that you're looking for from a product perspective? You know, if you're not confident in your system's costing abilities and accuracy, it's really hard to be confident in your pricing and margins and the discounts that you may potentially offer to your customers because you want to start moving a product a little bit quicker. So with NetSuite, we have things like dashboards and metrics on our homepage. Right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. Those within our Suite Success SKUs, we have for any of those, we really have kind of predefined dashboards and metrics that are specific to that vertical. That again, as of day one, those dashboards and metrics are going to show. And as the data builds within the system, they're going to show you your best sellers. They're going to show you your most active customers and key business metrics and ratios. NetSuite has multiple costing methods: standard cost, actual cost, average cost. Really, since there are multiple costing methods available, somebody like the FMT team who has experienced solution architects can really help you determine which costing model or method is the right one for your particular business. NetSuite does a great job at capturing true cost of goods sold through some of its functionality, like its inbound container management or inbound shipment management module. Helps us really capture the landed costs, the freight, the duties, the different costs that need to be rolled into inventory to, again, really reflect that true cost of goods sold. And then we have things like detailed gross profit margin reporting. So again, we can look at that reporting. We can know on a product by product basis or even on a product category basis where we stand from a profit margin perspective, so that again, we can pivot if we need to and make those good, accelerated, quick decisions in terms of how we may want to address our profit margins going forward. So just kind of drilling back into that a little bit from a dashboards and metrics or homepage perspective, we're looking at a homepage here for the warehouse manager role. So if we drill into that a little bit, you know, we can see different things like reminders coming up, reminder portlets that have sales orders to fulfill, purchase orders to receive. We can see different information bits on our and ratios and metrics around inventory valuation. How many cycle counts we have to complete. Lots of different things that really help us navigate through the application in a much easier way. So lots of great things, again, right out of the box: KPIs, metrics, scorecard information that's going to help us drive our drive our decisions and act where we need to act. We have a gross profit margin by item report. Right, so here I'm seeing my specific item information, and then if I kind of drive over here to the right, I've got sales price information, I've got revenue, cost, and gross profit, again by item, helping me to see where I stand from a gross profit perspective, and really putting that information right in front of the user to make a quick decision. So this one, I'd like to talk a little bit about one of our customers that's in the manufacturing and wholesale distribution vertical, a company called Selecta Membranes. This is a company that manufactures different types of organic membranes to really multiple industrial sectors around the globe. This is an implementation that we just finished up with Selecta, but really help them to consolidate multiple systems and manufacturing locations into one, help them develop an accurate version tracked BOM master table, really help them to produce an efficient work order and production process that they've come to be able to rely on and really sink their teeth into, and then help them increase really systematic controls around the supply chain process with approved vendor lists and those types of things. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about inventory visibility, let's really move kind of into the sales forecasting conversation, because we know that sales forecasting can really help with the intended movement of our inventory and then prepare us for and hopefully minimize the fluctuations in supply and demand. We all know that efficient inventory management is about ensuring accurate valuation, that we're producing quality products or that we're receiving quality product through our sources, and we're hitting acceptable turnover ratios. Appropriate sales forecasting practices are a precursor to all of that, but all too often we find that forecasting within organizations, it's manual. It's time consuming, and therefore it may not be accurate. The reasons why: it's managed externally within spreadsheets. Those spreadsheets have static formulas embedded within them that sometimes will produce errors, ultimately unmanageable inventory fluctuations, and reduced production line efficiencies. All that leads eventually to strained supplier relationships because we're working back and forth and not dealing in a very methodical way with our suppliers. So that's going to unfortunately reduce our fulfillment process efficiency and our production process efficiency, which leads to decreased customer satisfaction. So some solutions there that NetSuite has to offer is really systematic forecasting based on several factors, right? There can be factors within NetSuite's demand planning module that work off seasonality algorithms, look at historical sales activity, or forecasted units on a per period basis. NetSuite really does a good job at classifying and categorizing its product. And by doing that, that organizes and groups your data and just provides an easier forecasting and overall reporting experience to, again, help accelerate that decision-making process for your team members. And then there's also things or attributes within an item that are more item resource planning type attributes that can be maintained, things such as safety stock levels, minimum economic order quantities or levels, planning time fences. All these, if appropriately configured and set up, will lead to better forecasting capabilities and demand planning capabilities. And really, at the end of the day, experience and knowledge of the business really can't be beat, because when a particular solution, whatever it is that you're using, suggests for you to do something, that experience and knowledge of your user really should be used to kind of balance those suggestions and ultimately make the right decisions. So here we have some demand plans that we've set up within NetSuite. This is part of the demand planning module within the application. So you can see here, if we kind of zoom in on some of these items, We've got our demand plan set by particular location, so our San Francisco and Hood River locations, and then what the projection method is relative to that demand plan. There, of course, before I jump into customer support, there, of course, are other products that interact very well with NetSuite's inventory management features. Products like NetStock's Inventory Advisor, which is something we'll be discussing on tomorrow's webinar, but a great product in terms of really helping manage your inventory and your inventory replenishment. Okay, so let's jump over into customer support. So just as accurate sales forecasting is critical to accelerated business decision making kind of on the front end, customer support is just as critical on the tail end of our process, right? Many organizations we see, they encounter customer support challenges with the things that we've noted here, disparate systems that really don't provide a good overall and comprehensive view of customer interaction. So that may lead to a specific question being asked by different departments of the customer multiple times. Leads to customer frustration. That's because we're not seeing a 360 degree of that customer. Our processes are obviously broken between customer support, sales, and operations. Again, all critical departments to ensure that our customers are really having a satisfying experience. Ultimately, this is going to lead to issue resolution delays and decrease customer satisfaction. So with NetSuite, we've got within it a single platform, as I talked about earlier. It's a unified platform that has CRM capability, so that customer engagement side of thing is there. The customer support through its incident and case management module, it's already there. All its ERP functionality, obviously, and then as I mentioned, the customer service side with case management, all that within a single platform, giving us that 360 degree view, complete view of the customer. And NetSuite really does a good job at driving connected processes within the system. So connected processes means that if I do have a case that I've opened up for a particular customer issue, I can tie my RMA to that case. I can tie my sales order that's going to send out my replacement for that particular RMA. I can have all my issue management interactions and notes and customer information stored within that case. So that's all tied together. So again, it's showing us that complete view. So here we've got a list of cases within the NetSuite inquiry within a safe search. Really, I've got the ability to see with this safe search, it's actually a safe search embedded within a portlet where I can interact with it. I can filter on it based on customer. I can see what case numbers, what's the issue relative to that's the subject of the case, the priority, and what status it's in as well. You can see that some of the lines are a different color. So the save search capability within NetSuite enables me to bring some different highlighting effects to certain records. So if a record exists in a certain condition, I might want to highlight it in a certain way, all very easily configured within NetSuite. And then from there, I can actually drill from that list into the case support detail. So again, for case number 6 in this situation, I can drill into the specific detail. I can see related records to this specific case, and then I can see how much time has elapsed between when I actually created the case and where things stand or when it was actually closed. All right, so moving on from operations to finance, let's talk about some of the obstacles that really keep companies from making informed decisions or accelerated decisions to drive them forward from a financial perspective. So one of the issues that we commonly see is folks are, they're producing their reports, but it's a manual process and it's very time consuming. Why is that? Well, they're doing it in a way that's external to the solution itself. they're getting incomplete data sets as they're exporting that data from their system. So an incomplete data set means an incomplete perspective, right? They're only seeing a slice of the operating business at that point in time rather than a dashboard that represents or presents a comprehensive and holistic picture of the business. That data, as I mentioned, it's going to be stale. There's probably spreadsheet formulas that are static and that, again, are prone to breaking or producing incorrect information. That really leads to or lends itself to misguided decision-making rather than accelerated decision-making. So with NetSuite, you have things that are out of the box relative to a strong reporting catalog. You've got the dashboards, metrics, and scorecards and KPIs that I've been mentioning. You have the ad hoc reporting capability through its saved search functionality. And then you've got a unified platform. So all of that coming from a single source of the truth. So here we are, just to kind of reiterate that on the CFO's homepage, right? So in the CFO's homepage, I've got one-touch access to key reports, and I've got my KPIs that we can see here. So we're logging in, we're driving right to some of the key things relative to where my payables stand, where my receivables are, what my revenue is, period over period, right? I'm not just seeing it within kind of one time frame. I can compare it to different periods so I can start to see trends, right? These are really actionable data points that we can make decisions off of right away. And from the home page, we can drill right down into the detail that are really making up these numbers. Okay, so looking at another issue or another challenge we face from a finance perspective, it's really taking too long to close the books at the end of the year, end of the period. You may have certain finance teams within companies that are on the West Coast, and you have production teams that are on the East Coast. Well, that's going to lend itself towards a lack of really multi-location collaboration between the finance and production team. Makes communication a little more difficult. You're not going to have things like portals and checklists to really drive that month-end close process that are easily shared between those team members as well. If you're encountering this challenge, you're likely missing controls or approvals to ensure that account reconciliations are accurate and that we're following certain segregation of duties from a SOX perspective as well. And then typically you're in a situation where you're manually consolidating all this information from multiple entities or multiple locations. So again, with NetSuite, we've got a systematic methodology that can be used for period end processes. We've got checklists built in within the system that drive us through a process and allow us to lock subledgers by subsidiaries or entities to have that control. We've got collaborative portals and checklists with status indicators. We have approvals, we have controls and workflows and audit trails that help us track those reviews and approvals. We have things like different types of accounting close softwares, for instance, Flowcast, that work with NetSuite to really tie together those month-end tasks and help share those checklists and provide opportunities for us to really standardize the process, store documents the same way, report our status the same way, and to see where the month-end close or year-end close process is in its entirety from a percent complete perspective. Okay, and a third one I'd like to mention, a third challenge I'd like to mention is really some systems are unable to support going public. And I know this one is sort of a different challenge, but it's one that many folks experience, many businesses experience. In the case where you're going to have challenges going public, you're going to see financials that are not auditable, that are not verified. You're not going to see controls present within that environment, controls relative to user permissions and user security, audit trail, the separation of duty process that I talked about a little bit earlier. You certainly aren't going to see proven, repeatable, and reliable processes. You know, that's key within the business to ensure that you have that reliability and that repeatability in order to go public. You're not going to have a unified platform. You're going to have siloed solutions, different departments running different solutions, and then ultimately having to manually consolidate all that information into a report, which again is going to reduce the efficiency of producing that report and potentially introduce errors. Recovery and redundancy, it may not be addressed. That's a big one, right? If things happen and we need to act from a recovery perspective, we've got to have the ability to recover quickly and to be able to restore or be able to rely on our redundant systems to be back up and running if a particular server or a data center that we're interacting with goes down. So the solutions there that NetSuite has to offer really are controls, right? Roles and permissions from a user matrix perspective to be able to apply the appropriate security to each one of the users. Really providing, like I mentioned before, a single source of truth through a unified platform. NetSuite does a great job at solution encryption and ensuring that it's got built-in audit trails and password policies that are enforced. And through its network of data centers has an amazing ability to ensure that there is redundancy and that if any disaster does strike, that you're back up and running in a very quick manner. Wanted to point out this one here, just in terms of going public. This is an interesting statistic, particularly as it relates to, if we look at the years 2016, 2017, and 2018. This is, these are really software-related companies, but in terms of IPOs that happened in 2016, 2017, and 2018 for software-related companies, we had 8 out of 10 in 2016. Going public on NetSuite on 2017, 8 out of 11, and in 2018, 9 out of 10 IPOs that happened were NetSuite customers. So as we can see, a lot of IPO activity is connected to NetSuite because these companies are very aware and very knowledgeable about NetSuite and its ability to provide those controls, provide that reliability, and provide that redundancy that we need. Another report that's just built in right out of the box in NetSuite is the System Login Audit Report, available through administrative access, where I can drill in and I can see information relative to specific users. Was their attempt to log in a success or a failure? When did they do that? What IP address did they do that from? So lots of great ways, again, right out of the box for us to be able to have our audit capabilities and be able to drill back into the details of that. I'd like to talk about another customer that we have called Ark Holdings. I think this is a good one because it kind of ties into that compliance aspect of things that we were talking about in going public. Ark Holdings, they're headquartered in Rogers, Arkansas. They were founded in 2011. They've got multiple subsidiaries in multiple industries like retail, agriculture, engineering, manufacturing. They really hired FMT and implemented NetSuite to position themselves to become publicly traded, to establish the compliance controls that we were talking about earlier relative to separation of duty, also to accelerate the financial close process, which, through their strong team and their partnership with FMT, they were actually able to reduce their close duration by 7 business days. They were able to leverage NetSuite to really automate the consolidation for those multiple entities. So to be able to produce those consolidated reports that they needed in a much more efficient and faster time frame. And all this was done with their multiple entities within a 120-day project duration, and that really speaks to the success and the hard work that the EcoArk team provided and the partnership that they had with FMT in terms of driving that project through in a very detailed yet efficient way and duration. Okay, so let's go ahead and step out of the operations and finance side of the business and talk a little bit more about overall kind of solution flexibility. Really, it's a key component to any system that you expect your business to run on over the next 7 to 10 years. We certainly don't want to get our business backed into a solution configuration corner with an inability to change that configuration to support new business initiatives as we introduce them. Right? We're going to get backed into that corner if we've got a highly customized, inflexible solution. If it's an on-prem version locked type solution where we're stuck in a specific version and we can't upgrade because it would require an inordinate amount of resources and time to upgrade that solution. We may have multiple business entities running different solutions, so that's really going to impact our ability to implement a new business initiative across those entities. Maybe running isolated platforms, which again is going to slow down that process of introducing new business initiatives. And then obviously we're going to have challenges with consolidation and standardization of the process for that new business initiative. Solutions that NetSuite brings to the table relative to that is it promotes the implementations are typically done in a phased implementation methodology. So we promote that type of methodology to get you up and running and to get you up and running quickly and efficiently, and then to build onto that configuration as needed, kind of promoting that additive configuration process. So phase 1, getting you up and running and you're live and stable. Phase 2, perhaps introducing additional functionality that that will allow your business to continue to optimize itself within the NetSuite platform. NetSuite also has a seamless upgrade process, so you're not going to get locked into that version that will not allow you to experience the new features as they're released within the application. NetSuite's upgrade schedule is twice a year, so if you're on the platform, you get the upgrade and you receive that additional functionality and that optimized performance of the system. So that is there, and it's available for you to take advantage of. Another thing is really accessibility and mobility. So from the standpoint of the user being able to access NetSuite through its mobile phone application capabilities or through any browser, as long as you've got an internet connection, you can jump into NetSuite and you can do the work that you need to do at any location, anytime. And again, as I've said before, really the fact that NetSuite promotes a common platform and a standard process is going to make it easier for your organization to introduce a new business initiative or process within the solution, because everybody is working within the same framework. So here we've got, from a kind of a third-party integration flexibility perspective, different products that we work with quite frequently with the NetSuite platform, Flowcast being one of those. That's the one that we mentioned just relative to the close management software. NetStock and its capability to help manage inventory, replenishment. RF Smart is a great tool for scanning and processing purchase order receipts, sales order fulfillments, and many other transaction types within the NetSuite platform, more on an automated and barcode scanning basis. We frequently work with different iPaaS solutions such as Jitterbit, Delboomi, Scribe, E1, several of them, to integrate NetSuite into other platforms, for example, Salesforce.com. And then also several EDI solution capabilities, TrueCommerce, SPS Commerce, lots of other EDI products that, again, that we're working with to really bring efficiency to transaction processing within the application. Okay, so based on what we've talked about today, really knowing all that isn't enough, right? We have to be able to partner with folks, teams like FMT, to be able to understand where we are from a solution perspective at the enterprise level. So FMT can partner up with you to do a solution assessment process, to go through that process and really understand your business goals and objectives and the challenges and obstacles that that you run into. It helps you develop a comprehensive view of your business, and it helps FMT understand the business from a 360-degree view as well. Helps us understand where your solutions sit on the value chain assessment perspective, right? Are your solutions kind of at that foundational base level? Are you using products that are best in class? Or are you really using those transformative products that really are driving optimization and efficiency to the enterprise as a whole? So we can come and we can do that, and then we can develop really a solution roadmap, which includes a project plan and other deliverables that will lay out the task, timeline, budget, and resources required for you to make a solution like NetSuite a reality within your business. Things to watch out for when we're doing that, though. What are some of the common implementation mistakes, right? We've done many implementations, and we've had that experience, so we know what things to watch out for. Some of the key ones: really failing to assess the current environment and understand it before you begin that implementation. Developing kind of a big bang approach in terms of rolling out your solution, so having an unrealistic phase one and not looking at it from kind of an additive configuration perspective, like we talked about earlier. Prioritizing exceptions over the rules, that can kind of get in the way of really developing the solution that's going to ensure that the business can scale over time, because you get so bogged down in addressing those exceptions rather than staying at a level where you're making sure that that you're handling the typical business scenarios that you encounter. Going it alone is tough, because while NetSuite is a very adaptable solution, it has its complexities in terms of all of the functionality, because it is so deep and so rich in terms of the different things that it can do for all the different types of business models out there. You have to be careful about being oversold on licensing, because you want to make sure that you're partnering with somebody like FMT who understands the business and then can help you make good decisions on what you need, what types of modules, license user counts, those types of things, so that you're not overpaying and you're really getting the return on the investment that you need. And then also look out for unorganized project management. At FMT, we have a PMO office, and the PMO office has project managers within it that really drive a common and efficient project management methodology across every one of its projects. So that standardization is key in ensuring that we understand, both you and the project team understand where you're at from a project status and budget and critical path perspective. Okay, so today we talked about several things, right? We talked about the challenges that manufacturing business models face, the solutions that NetSuite has within it to be able to address those challenges, the ecosystem and the third-party capabilities. I mean, we just looked at a few, but NetSuite has an entire ecosystem and a website at suiteapp.com that really talks about and shows and gives you detail on all the third-party modules and applications that are available that integrate with NetSuite. And then looked at some of the common mistakes and kind of gotchas relative to our implementations. All right, so for tomorrow, we've got scheduled the NetStock demand planning to increase profitability webinar, so looking forward to that. Nick, at this point, I think I will send it back to you so that we can address any questions that may have come up during the webinar.
Thanks, Paul. Our first question that we got here is, what integrations are available for NetSuite besides the ones you mentioned?
Integrations that are available for NetSuite besides the ones that we mentioned or talked about today. So I would recommend going out to Suite App, so suiteapp.com, and really looking at that website. There you can filter by industry to see all of the different third parties that are available, third-party applications that are available and integrate with NetSuite, and have gone through the process to ensure that they're proven and are reliable solutions. So that website is really going to give anybody a great feel for what's out there in terms of third parties and integration type products.
Awesome. We got another question here. What's the most common goals you see clients working towards with NetSuite?
Most common goals, I think, it's definitely the ones that we talked about, just relative to optimizing the efficiency of process. Really being able to, we talked about driving the close duration down from 20 days to 7 days, being able to leverage the out-of-the-box dashboards and metrics and scorecards that are available, really being able to bring the organization onto a unified platform where everybody is operating within the same framework, and being able to take advantage of the comprehensive views that we talked about and some that we looked at relative to customers or inventory quantities. Really everybody being on that same solution and being able to operate in an efficient way and maintains customer satisfaction.
Okay, we got another one here. How do you recommend selling NetSuite internally to get buy-in from the team?
Well, recommending NetSuite internally, I think really one of the key factors with NetSuite is, it's really geared for that operational user. At the end of the day, there are some applications out there that are so accounting based that you can see that it was built for the finance team or more of an accounting based user. NetSuite, with its ability, again, on a unified platform to be able to get to specific things in so many different ways, to be able to configure your workflows and your processes with different levels of controls, and to be able to, separate the duty from a SOX perspective, to go to that level, or if your organization is a smaller organization, to drive flexibility so that you have fewer people doing more things. I think those are some of the great sort of inside selling points of the application.
Fantastic. We got another one here. What's the common timeline for assessing our needs?
Common timeline for assessing needs. So from a solution assessment perspective that we talked about, that usually is about a 2-week process. So coming in and, again, taking a little bit of time to understand the business and business goals and objectives, where the challenges lie, really sitting where your current solutions sit on the value chain assessment, and then putting together a plan and a solution roadmap to get you where you want to be and to address your business goals. All in, that's about a 2 to 3 week process.
And kind of playing off the previous question, how long does a typical implementation usually take?
Well, I think that really depends on the business itself. Smaller companies are, those with less complex processes, those implementations are going to be a 2 to 3 month duration. You get some that are more complex and larger with a higher user count. Those are typically going to take anywhere from 4 to 6 months, just in terms of, kind of looking at it too from a mid-market perspective, with those companies that have that $15 million to $500 million revenue revenue statistic, you're talking 4 to 6, maybe 8 months as you get kind of in the higher end of that revenue spectrum.
Awesome, thank you, Paul. That looks like that is the remainder of the questions we have. So thank you, Paul, and thank you all of you for joining us today. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email at nenrico@fmtconsultants.com. We will also be following up with all the attendees after the webinar, so feel free to ask at that time. We truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us, and we hope to see you tomorrow for part 2 of our 3-day webinar series, Accelerate Your ERP Decision Making. Have a great day.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for FMT's presentation of our second installment of our 3-day webinar series, Using Your ERP to Accelerate Decision Making. My name is Lucas Darling. I'm an accounting executive here at FMT Consultants, and I'm joined by one of our value partners, NetStock, and their VP of Sales, Russ Graff. If at any point during this presentation you have a question, feel free to type them into the comment box. We will be monitoring it throughout the webinar, and we'll answer all questions at the end. Thank you. Now I'm going to hand over to Russ to guide you through the webinar. Russ?
All right, thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it. And yes, as Lucas mentioned, my name is Russ Graff, and I'm with a company called NetStock, and I've been in this ERP space for a long time. You see a lot of gray hair in that picture, and I earned every one of them. So today we're going to talk about driving more profit from your inventory. That's the topic, and I think it fits really nicely into the theme of the series that is being presented by FMT relating to this concept of accelerating your decision making. Obviously, in our case, we're focusing on how that applies in the realm of inventory and inventory demand planning and so forth. So we've got a lot to cover in the next 30, 40 minutes or so. We will be able to take some questions at the end. So in the interface of your GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar interface that you have there, if you have questions that come up during the course of the presentation, feel free to use the question dialog box, and at the end, Lucas will be able to review those with me, and we'll be happy to answer them, and there should be some time at the end to do that. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So at NetStock, we do work with small and medium-sized businesses as primarily our target market, and we have companies that use our application and that we're talking to all across North America and really around the globe for that matter. We are a global company. And of course, these are inventory-based businesses, so distributors, manufacturers, retailers, amongst others, and for the most part, the value of their inventory is often the largest asset on their balance sheet, maybe second to some real estate holdings. But either way, it's absolutely core to their business. There's no question about that. They're in the inventory game, right? They're buying and selling, and that's really core to the whole operation. And those are the kinds of businesses that we work with. And so, what we find is that most of those businesses, of course, are all using an ERP application of some kind. And there's, maybe a half a dozen very popular ones that we work with. There may be some third-party add-ons involved in the environment somewhere. And in the case of inventory, that might be a warehouse management solution, for example, where you're doing some barcoding or a shipping application. That's so other applications that bolt on to the ERP. And of course, we see plenty of use of Excel spreadsheets. And there are certain cases where Excel, I think, is the appropriate tool. Certainly on the finance and budgeting side, there's a lot of value there. But we also see it often used in the management of inventory, and so we've got some things that we'll talk about there as to why that might be a challenge. Before we dive into that in more detail, though, I just want to give a little bit of context here in terms of what we think about in terms of inventory management and the difference between inventory control and inventory replenishment, really what I would view as two components of the overall inventory management topic. And a lot of times when you first say the words inventory management, our minds turn towards the things that really are the control functions, managing the physical product, right? Receiving inventory at the dock, picking, packing, shipping, getting product out the door, maybe doing physical counts, hopefully cycle counts in your organization. We're a big proponent of that. It makes an awful lot of sense if you've got tools that support your ability to do regular cycle counts, especially of key items. And again, this is maybe where we would see a third-party application like a warehouse management solution or some sort of a barcoding application where you're using handheld devices to scan barcodes to help you with the pick, pack, and ship process and so forth, and the counting process. So that's one piece of it, inventory control, and oftentimes that's where our minds first go and sometimes just stay right there. But we would argue that there's a flip side to that coin, another key component. Clearly, you have to know how much you have and where you have it, which the control piece does a great job of. But it's not the whole story. It's really about also understanding, is it the right product at the right place at the right time? And that's really the replenishment, or what sometimes we would call inventory optimization. That component of the inventory management environment is really quite important. Involves forecasting and proper ordering and understanding what I need to expedite and where I have issues and so forth. And so that's the piece that we focus on at NetStock. And that's the area where we sometimes see inventory replenishment functions managed by Excel, which we believe is problematic. But before we talk about the problems, let's think about what the issues are there if we don't get it right. It's certainly the worst thing that can happen in an inventory-based organization is that I run out of product. I've got a customer that has demand for something, they want to spend money with me and buy the stuff from me, and I can't deliver because I've run out of product. That's the worst case scenario, and obviously cost sales, cost profits, and can potentially cost customers in today's competitive environment. If I have a product that is somewhat commoditized and my customer can go elsewhere to get satisfaction, they're going to go there. And it may not only cost me that one individual sale, but if that happens often enough, or if my customer has a great experience with a competitor, it could cost me the customer altogether. So worst possible scenario is I run out of product. Unfortunately, the way that many businesses solve that problem is by buying too much. And now I have another problem. I have excess inventory that is very expensive. It's not uncommon for us when we work with customers to identify 15, 20% or more of total inventory value being in an excess status, right? So if a firm, let's just for easy math, say they've got $1 million worth of inventory on the books and in the warehouse or multiple warehouses, that means that some $200,000 perhaps of working capital is tied up in that excess inventory. And that's money that could be put to use elsewhere in the business to drive some other initiatives and profits and so forth. In addition, there's also a carrying cost associated with inventory, some of which is, you can't get around. But if I've got excess, let's say I've got that same $200,000 worth of excess inventory, I've probably another 20, 25%, maybe $50,000 worth of costs each year on carrying that inventory, things like taxes and insurance, the potential for shrinkage or obsolescence. You got to count it and move it around. It takes up space in the warehouse. So there's a lot of costs associated with having excess. And so managing that balancing act is really what we call inventory optimization, having enough but not too much. And it is a balancing act. And the buyers and the planners in the organization, that might be one person, might be several people, are the ones that are responsible for managing that balancing act. And they're getting pushed from both sides, right? They're getting finance, accounting, controller type people screaming at them that they've got too much inventory and they need to, reduce that and get rid of inventory. And then you've got sales VPs and managers on the other side screaming at them that, hey, you can't run out of product. I don't care what it costs. You've got to have product to meet my demands and my customers so I can make sales. So it's a very difficult, stressful situation for that buyer or planner being in the middle of those two competing interests, if you will. And they find themselves running around putting out fires, expediting orders, using all kinds of manual or semi-manual processes, again, not having adequate tools to really manage it. And again, if you don't get it right, it's expensive. And Excel is often the tool of choice for trying to solve the problem, and getting some reports dumped out from the ERP application and so forth. So it can be very challenging and has a lot of costs associated with it. And we've done some blogging. We have a blog called the Inventory Mentor out on our website. And we recently wrote about a study that we saw that almost 35% of wholesale supply chain executives are indicating that their current planning processes really don't provide, or only 35% provide actionable insights. So the majority of these customers, of these inventory-based businesses, really don't have proper actionable insights and understanding of what their demand profile looks like, what their customers are needing, and having all the tools available at their disposal to get this right. Which is really a shocking number, to be honest with you. So the question then becomes, do inventory spreadsheets work? Clearly, it's an easy choice, right, because of availability and ease of use. Everybody's familiar with Excel and the whole Microsoft application environment. It's very consistent, so you can get pretty productive pretty quickly. And you know, some folks can really get good at it. They manage some very complex calculations. We all probably have an Excel wizard, as you might call them, somewhere in the organization that has done some pretty remarkable things. There's no question Excel is an amazing application, but it's really a platform, right? It's kind of this blank slate with some tools to allow you to build applications, if you will. And how am I going to use that? And again, so for certain financial environments and others, that's a great application and perfectly suited to that purpose. But in the case of demand planning and inventory planning, it's really not well suited for that. But it's a tool that's available. People are trying to figure out a way to solve the problem one way or another, and so you know, that's what we find as being the tool of choice. So clearly there are some challenges with that, however, right? And we've actually done an entire series of blogs and really even I think a whole entire webinar presentation just focused on this topic alone. So I'm not going to belabor the point and go into that level of depth, but just if we consider this at a high level, what the challenges are with trying to utilize a tool like this, because it's really all about data and accuracy of data, right? I'm trying to understand what's my current situation. And so we've got ERP applications that do a great job of capturing all this raw data. We've got folks that are, you know, keying in invoices and shipments and receipts and all kinds of activity, all kinds of transactions being managed all day long in the ERP applications. And so now I've got these 7 or 8 or 10 files maybe scattered throughout my database that have all this key information that we've been capturing all day. And NetSuite and other ERPs for that matter do a great job of capturing all that raw data. It's very well organized. We understand exactly where it is. It's well structured and so forth. So it is possible for folks to figure out how to extract the data from NetSuite, get it into an Excel environment, and get that right. It's not easy. It's a little time consuming, but it can be done. And for the most part, once you figure it out, you've got it cracked. The one thing that, you know, you may have some changing environments. If there's new versions of the ERP application or a new version of Excel, maybe you've got some changes. You have to go back and maintain that process. But for the most part, you can get there. I think one of the bigger challenges, though, is the timing, or what I would call the data synchronization. You know, when do I do that extraction of data? If I'm doing it during the course of the business day, where I've still got people banging away on the interface and entering transactions all the time, I'm likely to have some really inaccurate or out of sync files, right? I might download my item master file, and that takes a few minutes, and I get it into my spreadsheet, and then I have to go back and grab some other file, my open purchase order file, and then my open sales order file, and then maybe my bill of materials file. So again, I've got these 7, 8, 10 files scattered around. By the time I get through all those and I've done each of those downloads, they're probably no longer in sync with other data files that I've grabbed. So already I've got challenges in my spreadsheet. And we also know that all spreadsheets, almost all spreadsheets, I think we saw a study once that said 88% of business spreadsheets have at least one error in them. And the more complex the spreadsheet, the more likely that there are going to be errors. And the more challenging the formula is, they may not actually produce an error message. They might just be wrong. And you never even realize that until you go through some sort of a detailed audit, or you see some numbers that don't make sense, and then you trace it back and you go, oh man, that formula that I created has a wrong character, a wrong field, or whatever it might be. So lots of challenges with accuracy of the data and the timing of the data. But I don't want to overlook another issue, which is the control issue. You know, you think about who in the firm is responsible for that data access and synchronization process, and who manages and updates this monster spreadsheet. Sometimes it's, you know, master.xls or something is what we, you know, inventory master, or what these things are typically called, but we've had customers refer to them as monster spreadsheets. You know, they can be, you know, hundreds of columns wide and of course, you know, thousands of rows deep, depending on the size of how many SKUs you have in your inventory, multiple tabs and worksheets that flow from one to another. So it really can be a monster. And so who's in charge of that? Is that one person that really understands that, that's built that, and that understands the flow of information and understands the formulas? And what is the risk there of having just that one person in control, right? What if that individual, you know, obviously they're going to take some PTO time, they're going to get sick, but even worse, what if they just leave the organization? We've heard that horror story many times from our customers, that, you know, they had somebody that built this great spreadsheet that seemed like it was going okay. at least to their knowledge, and then this person left and nobody else knew how to manage the operation, and now they were in trouble. So there can really be a risk factor there that I think bears thinking through. But then even if you get this right and you've got all this figured out, it's a never-changing environment, right? And there are additional inputs that you're almost never going to be able to grab from the ERP. There's other external inputs that need to be added to that spreadsheet. You know, how do I calculate my safety stock? How do I segregate and classify my items that I'm managing, because they don't all behave the same way? What about replenishment cycles? What about bills of materials and the recipes of how I make a finished good if I'm doing any kind of assembly work? So there's just an awful lot of complexity there, and really challenging to expect that a spreadsheet environment would really be able to accommodate that. And again, it's constantly changing. Once you think you've got it figured out, lo and behold, something new happens. I get a new employee and he's got a new process. I do something different in the warehouse. I rearrange things, and all of a sudden I've got all these impacts on the spreadsheet. So it's just asking an awful lot of Excel and its users to stay on top of all that. And we talked a little bit earlier about the impact of not getting it right, of not understanding the forecasts and getting the planning right. We talked about the high cost of stocking out and excess inventory and the impact on the productivity of the buyers and planners. And we recently surveyed our existing customers, users of our application, and asked them which of those three things was really the most impactful for them. And I guess it shouldn't have been as much of a surprise as it was, but the response that we got was actually none of the above, that the most important benefit that our customers saw of the application that we utilize and we promote is the visibility, just the ability to really understand the health of the inventory, both at a macro, at a large level overview, and also being able to drill in and look at an individual item and understand how it's behaving and what its trends are and so forth, and what to do about that. And so that visibility and the ability to have those analytics drive your decision making really is what's critical about this whole process. And that's why I think this topic fits nicely into the series that FMT is doing here in terms of understanding decision making, because it's not only the quality of the decision that you can make with proper data and proper visibility and access to that data, but it's also the speed with which you can make decisions without having to spend a week digging through a spreadsheet, right, and dumping data and trying to figure out and compile it and write reports and analyze and so forth. If you have a tool that does all that heavy grunt work for you, now you can really make quick decisions that are high quality, that are data based, that are really important. And one of the other thing that I'd like to chat, another one of the blogs that we've done recently is talking about kind of what we call the multiplier effect of freeing up that working capital, right? We talked about how a lot of businesses have 10, 20, sometimes 30% or more of inventory sitting in an excess status, product that's sitting there that didn't need to be there yet, that's tying up cash. And so when we free up that cash, that's a great thing, but it's not just that the money is now going into the bank, or maybe buying a new Mercedes for the owner if it's a small business. It's what can I do with that cash that can drive other initiatives within the organization. We had a customer of ours tell us that they freed up, I think they had something like $3.5 million worth of inventory, and they got it down to about 2.6, so almost $1 million worth of capital that they freed up over the course of several months, maybe 9 months, I think, if I recall the story. And what they did with that was it allowed them to invest in some research and development and release 3 new products into the marketplace. As an audio company, produced 3 new products into the marketplace that allowed them to leapfrog their competition. So it's not just about freeing up the cash, but what's the multiplier effect of that cash? What can I do with that not only help gives me money to do things with, but what I do with that can really make a huge impact. Other companies that we talked about that have been able to hire more staff or make investments in their facilities or do more marketing and so forth. So lots of great uses for that cash rather than sitting in a warehouse for all these other strategic initiatives. And now you have that available to make those decisions. So something to keep in mind is that multiplier concept. Excuse me. So the concept of an inventory best practices is really what we're after, right? No matter what tool you're using, whether it's NetSuite and your ERP being able to help you do this, whether it's a third-party add-on app or a spreadsheet. What you're after in this environment is what we would call an optimal order recommendation. And because it's all about buying smart, right? Buying the right quantities at the right time based on all these various inputs in terms of lead times and demand plans and so forth and forecasts, et cetera. So if whatever your process and tools are, if it's not delivering that, then it's overdue to be replaced, right? That's really the target here, is buying smart. And so how do you create an optimal order? What does that best practice look like? Well, I think, we would argue that there are multiple factors or components of that process. Certainly, it makes a perfect sense to classify your items. And we may be familiar with, everybody's kind of done an ABC analysis. Sometimes we see ABCD analysis, where I'm ranking my items in my inventory based on the value of that inventory. So A items are the most valuable, highest cost factors in those items and so forth. So now I've got that classification where I can make some decisions based on that. That's part of a decision factor. But we would also recommend and look for an ability to also rank those same items by speed of movement. We hear the term turnover referenced in inventory a lot. The more turns I can get, the better off I am. That means I'm managing my inventory better. So we want to look at the speed of movement and those demand profiles for those items, and then combine those two views to really help understand what's going on there with my items. Excuse me. Another factor is that calculation of safety stock, right? In a perfect world, if I knew that I was going to sell the last item of that SKU off my shelf today at 2:30, and I could place an order and have it back replenished at 3 o'clock this afternoon, then I don't need buffer stock, right? But that's not the reality. That's not the world we live in today. It's a matter of having suppliers that we need to order from that have lead times, and there's uncertainty in that demand. I don't know for sure that customer is coming in at 2:30 this afternoon, right? And I don't know for sure that they're going to just buy one of those items and maybe not today need 2 or 3 or 5. So, to balance those risks of unknown demand and unknown supplier performance and lead times, I've got to have a buffer or a safety stock that manages those risks. And so how do I calculate that? There are a lot of factors that in a proper calculation of that really need to go into calculating that safety stock level. And then there's just the whole process of alerting me and staying ahead of the curve, right? How do I know, making sure that I know quickly that I'm about to stock out, or that I've already stocked out, or that I'm about to have too much inventory. I've got a purchase order arriving that I didn't need yet. And so maybe I can do something to prevent that from coming in and contributing to my excess stock status. So warnings and alerts and availability of information quickly at my fingertips that tells me, hey, here's what's going on or what's about to go on. You need to take some action. And then all that is driven by forecasts that are based on data. It's amazing how many companies we talk to that are using sales forecasts, right? Input from the sales team as their sole source of defining a forecast. And I'm not sure what your experience in life has been, but mine has been that salespeople are eternal optimists. They always think they're going to sell more than they actually do, and that's great. That's a great personality trait to have, a great styled approach to have, but it doesn't necessarily work for managing inventory levels. So certainly the sales team and things that are going on in the marketplace, competitors and so forth, have to inform the decisions about what my forecasts look like. But ultimately, initially, it really has to be based on data, which is based on past performance. What has been the history of this item? Has it been trending up or down? Does it tend to be seasonal? Does it have odd spikes and dips that I need to understand and manage? So what's the historical pattern of the demand of every one of my items in every one of my warehouses? And then on top of that, I can add in some of those external inputs. But you really have to have forecasts that are based on good, solid data and understanding of what's happened historically. So if you have all that information at your fingertips and can kind of run that through the formula, if you will, you're going to be able to create that optimal order, which is really what it's about. So it's about the right tool then, right? Do I have the right tool? And what we've been saying is that, and I think we've made the point pretty well, that Excel is not the answer. It's not the optimal tool. And you'll know right away when you have it or not, right? The wrong tool gets in your way, makes it hard to get those optimal orders done. The right tool helps you establish those best practices so that you can really maximize the profit from your inventory and make the right decisions, the right buying decisions at the right time. And so when we talk about an optimized inventory, what that really, I guess the way we define that is having the lowest possible inventory value with the highest possible service level to your customers. We'll talk about a fill rate as a metric for how often can I meet the demands of my customers, right? And the most valuable items, the most important bread and butter items in my inventory, I want to have a higher metric, a higher fill rate target, maybe 96, 98%, right? That I almost never want to run out of that product when there's demand for it. But I can't have 100% service levels on every product, because then I'm going to have warehouses overflowing with inventory, right? Can't meet that level. So there's that balancing act again. Lowest possible value of inventory, highest possible fill rates or level of service to my customers, and then placing the proper orders that allow me to achieve that. So, what does the right tool look like, right? So it needs to be easy access and give you visibility to all these metrics, right? Give you real insights into the nature of the health of the business, the health of the inventory, and what's gone wrong, right? The last bullet point here, that management by exception, I need to understand when something has gone south on me. When is my forecast inaccurate to a degree that's going to cause some pain? If I'm over forecasting, I think I'm going to sell more than I actually am. That's going to produce excess inventory. I want to get ahead of the curve. If it's the 20th of the month or 21st of the month here now, and I'm predicting that in February my forecast was to sell 100 of these SKUs, and at the 21st of the month I've only sold 5, I got a problem, right? Because I ordered based on that forecast. So I need to know that as early in the month as possible. Or conversely, I predicted 100 and I've sold 300, I'm going to have a stockout problem, right? So I better get a PO issued, or better figure out if I can transfer from another warehouse or take some action. So I really need to identify those exceptional items. If I've got thousands of SKUs, especially in my inventory, I can't look at every one every day, even with the best of tools. So help me understand and help me prioritize which are the most important items, which ones are most profitable to me, those bread and butter items, and then help me identify where those are, now going out of control or behaving differently than what I expected, whether it's a forecast or a supplier that's not delivering on time, and help me now take some action on that, right? So it really requires a dashboard that gives me all that visibility and puts me in control to do that. So that's our view of what the right tool would look like, which is 100% data and data analytics, and really understanding what to expect here. And if you found the right tool, it does all those things. But we've also learned that there's more to it than the right tool, and there's some pieces of that, right? First of all, it's not the right tool if it's too hard to implement. If your team can't understand it and can't use it properly, and this tends to be one of the problems with ERP-based applications that do demand planning and forecasting for us. They tend to be pretty obtuse, pretty hard to understand, not real visual, and they tend not to be supported and coached very well, because it's kind of a specific environment that's not necessarily in the realm of expertise of most ERP developers. And so it's not the right tool if people can't use it, right? Can't utilize it properly, even if it has maybe all the functionality somewhere in it. If it's too hard to deploy, too hard to use, that's a problem. And as well as if it's too expensive, right? There are, and our guys are experiencing this. The folks that started NetStock 8 years ago come from big enterprise, complex, multinational supply chain environments where they wrote really customized and complex applications to help the big guys solve this problem globally. But those are really expensive, right? Those are $1 million products, and another couple $1 million to implement it and support it and tweak it and customize it and all that. Not appropriate for the small, medium-sized business market that we're operating in. So it has to be priced appropriately to get the job done. because there has to be an ROI and a payback that makes sense for the investment, just like any other investment in the business. And then really, I think the biggest problem that we run into, we have, we're proud to say we've got a very low churn rate. That's the kind of the term that software as a service or cloud application companies use to measure some of their success, right? How often are we churning or losing customers? And our churn rate's very low, and we're really proud of that. But when we look, obviously we do occasionally lose a customer, and when we analyze what happened there, what we find is that in most cases, it is a function of a lack of engagement, that we just cannot get the folks that invested in the application to, kind of toe the line and make it happen. Change management is very difficult, and it's not in our realm to make that happen as a software developer and application company. Change has to come from within, and it's got to be, managed by the top end of the organization and come downstream that, hey, this is the expectation. I know you love that spreadsheet, and I know you invested a lot of time in building it, Mr. Planner or Mrs. Planner, but it's time for it to go. It's not the right tool. We're going to move forward, and this is the better tool for us. So it's just the way it is, right? So that change management function within the organization is absolutely critical. And it's a great role for the folks at FMT to play in this process, right? They get to know your business really well with all the ERP implementation and support that they do. They understand who the players are and the personalities. They've got the relationship with upper management. So those folks can really make an impact on the quality of the change management to make sure that people are adopting the new tool, really playing with it, testing it, stretching the limits, asking all the right questions, pushing it, and making it work for them. And when we see that in place in the organization, the combination of the right tool and the right processes and the right change management, it's a great thing to see. We really see huge results coming out as a result of that. So the right tool is appropriate and necessary, but there's more to it than just that. So I think we've adequately framed the nature of the problem, the impacts and the costs of not getting it right, of not solving the problem, and some of the challenges related to getting this right. So I hopefully we've done a decent job without belaboring the point of helping you understand that this is important. It's critical to the success of an organization that's an inventory-based company. It's a very competitive world that we live in today, and you got to get this right because your competitors are working on it as well, and it can make or break the life of your business, the success of your business. So I think we've framed that okay. So now, as a kind of a process of wrapping this up a little bit, let's talk about the NetStock approach and how we kind of address the issues here with our application and trying to, again, really accelerate your decision making, but in the realm of inventory optimization, right? Give me the right data and the right tools and so forth to help me make right decisions quickly. And so again, our team built this cloud-based application called NetStock, company name and product name, built it about 8 years ago. And again, was based on these decades of experience in these really large enterprise level supply chain environments, and said, what's the 80-90% of stuff that we've done in that big environment that we can glean and bring down to that environment for the small, medium-sized business, right? Is there certain functionality, a key thing being ease of use, understanding the nature of our customers, that these are folks that probably are wearing multiple hats in the organization, that may have come into the planning or buying role from a warehouse role or something like that. So they're typically not degreed supply chain people with all this academic background and experience in big environments. Sometimes there's exceptions to that that we see in some of our customers, but that was our target, right? How can we make this really easy to deploy, easy to use, and get the results that the middle market companies need? And so that was the vision, if you will, and the purpose of building the application. So the approach that we took was to build a cloud-based application so that's available on demand, anytime, anywhere, in any browser, right? At the time that we were building this 8 years ago, the cloud had proven itself to be a viable delivery mechanism in that environment. It was stable, it was ubiquitous, it's everywhere, easy enough to use. People were getting a handle on it, and it was the right way to deliver an application to the middle market. So that's what we've done. So it built from the ground up to be a cloud browser-based application. Then we built seamless integrations into the ERP, and NetSuite's one of our favorite ones. NetSuite's a great application, obviously a cloud application as well. So it's a perfect pairing for NetStock and NetSuite. The names even sound similar. And so we've got a very seamless integration that solves that whole data issue that we talked about, right? We grab the data typically on a nightly basis, automatically, grabbing it all at the same time. So the data is synchronized, it's compressed and secured and so forth, and brought up into our private cloud environment. So you don't have to worry about any of that heavy lifting in terms of grabbing the data, knowing where it is, and all the file definitions and all that kind of stuff. We take care of all that for you. Grab all those 7, 8, 10, 13 tables and files, get it up into our application and do our number crunching, and then present back a dashboard that is graphical, colorful, interactive, easy to understand. I can navigate it quite easily, and provides this management by exception sort of approach. And then importantly, can be very quickly deployed, right? What the phrase that we like to use is time to value. So as short a possible time that I can get this up and running and start creating value for the customer, that's going to be a benefit for everybody. And so that's a real key target for us, and getting folks up and running in 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks, depending on how complicated the environment is and the time frames available from the end user. So very rapidly deployed, very quick payback, and because it's cloud-based and the way that we deliver that model remotely, we can just have a very affordable subscription pricing model, whether monthly or annually. You know, it's a software as a service type of model. So that's kind of the concept and the approach that we've taken with the development of the application. I thought today, instead of actually diving into a live version of the application and doing a demo, if you will, I've got a couple of screenshots that I think will help you get a feel for the look and feel, and save a little bit of time as we wrap up here in the next few minutes, and then open it up for questions. So here's an example of our dashboard. There's actually 9 different widgets or panels on the dashboard. This screenshot is of the top 6, which is really the most important day-to-day uses for the dashboard. And so you can see some real consistent look and feel, lots of color, graphics, and so forth. So I've got some trending in those bar charts across the top of each one of those KPIs or measurements. We've got then some numbers that are associated with that. You know, so if I look, for example, at my excess stock tab in the middle, this is showing me, hopefully you can see this okay, that I've got $9.5 million worth of excess inventory across some 2,500 items. Well, I can drill into that full report just by clicking on those numbers. But more importantly, maybe I can take a look at what we call our top 5 list underneath there. And these are the top 5 items that are contributing the most to that problem. And I've got some color coding there that helps me understand the nature of those items. Every one of those items is hyperlinked, so I can drill into a specific item and take a closer look. So I can look at a macro level at the overall report and slice and dice some data that I can launch into from here, or I can drill into the individual items. But I can see exactly what's happening. Where do I have too much? Where am I about to have too much? Where have I stocked out, and what's that going to cost me potentially in lost sales? Where am I about to stock out so that I can get ahead of the curve, right? So I can be a little proactive there. And so in the case of a surplus order or a potential stock out, I can either, you know, cancel an order or delay a shipment coming in if I don't need it yet, or conversely expedite an order or place an order and get one going real quickly if I'm about to run out. So all that stuff and that whole management by exception and prioritization is all built into the dashboard view, if you will. And this is where our customers and buyers and planners spend the majority of their day looking at the dashboard. Second screenshot to talk about is we talked about item classification. So here's where we rank all the items by that ABC axis in terms of value, but then also low, medium, high speed of movement or velocity. And we end up with this combined view. And so in the upper right-hand corner in color green, right, these are our bread and butter items. These are high value, fast moving items that are driving probably the majority of our profitability in the business. So those are ones we're going to pay more attention to. So if I just flip back, for example, to the dashboard, you'll see some green color coded items in these top 5 lists. These are bread and butter items that are having issues. So those are probably, if I've got limited time in my day, as we all do, I'm going to focus on those first. And if I can solve 3 or 4 or 5 of those problems today, make progress, and those are the ones that are most impactful to my profitability. Tomorrow I get a fresh view of my dashboard, a fresh top 5 list, and I hammer away at those. And if I can do that consistently day after day, being driven to those right priorities by the tool, then I can't help but see the trends go the right direction, right? So this classification is really key, and there's lots of data there that we won't spend time on today, but there's an awful lot of visibility and information that's presented in that process. A third screenshot just to give you a feel for what our forecasting tab looks like. So this would be an individual item that I'm looking at the forecast, and I'm first looking at in blue the historical usage. And so I can see this item is all over the map, up and down, all over the place. Looks like some seasonal patterns there that our algorithms would pick up on and project future demand based on some seasonality. So I've got table information, 27 months worth of data, it looks like. And then I've got graphical information, and I've got the ability to amend that detail and add my own tribal knowledge, if you will, to that forecast. So this is what the computer algorithm is projecting, but I can now add my own feedback from sales or from the marketplace, et cetera. So very easy to understand, and you see other tabs across the top of this screen where I can look at specific supplier performance and any existing POs or customer orders that are out there for this item. We do support bills and materials down to 99 levels, so if this was a component item or a finished good item, I could see those relationships and so forth. So to give you a feel there. And then the last screenshot before we wrap it up, just to give you a feel for what we call our order schedule. So now I've got all this analytics, all this understanding of what's going on. The key thing is, again, help me create the optimal order. And so we have an order schedule where you can, as a buyer or planner, have at your fingertips all the information. We're going to make the recommendation on how much to buy based on all of the factors that we've talked about, plus understanding minimum order quantities and multiples that I need to order in and so forth. I've got the ability to understand what it takes to fill a container or how much weight I need to get free shipping or maybe a discount on my purchase. All those things are available to me as a buyer at my fingertips to make the right decisions and go forward. You know, I recently heard a phrase that was new to me the other day. I've been familiar with this term that's called predictive analytics, which, you know, is what it sounds like, right? I've got analytics and tools and analysis that helps me predict the future and see what the future is going to look like. And certainly the NetStock application provides that through the forecasting engine and being able to understand where my stock levels will be every day in the future based on what I know now and so forth. So very predictive that way. But I heard a new term that I really liked, which was called prescriptive analytics. So instead of predictive, it's prescriptive, and which really, to me, implies a next level of analytics that not only is projecting the future, but is recommending actions that I can take to achieve that future. And I think this order schedule is one of those tools that really is that way, right? If I place this optimal order based on all this great analysis and all these metrics and inputs that I've got, I'm now prescribing my future, right? I'm making recommendations as to what this action needs to be. So I think that actually does a nice job of describing this, and it's pretty cool, and I think very impactful. So this order schedule is really the one that that really makes a difference for our buyers and planners. In fact, you know, we talked about that multiplier effect of freeing up the working capital. You know, there's other benefits as well. It's not always financial. We have one customer that I've talked to up in Rhode Island, who is the primary buyer, is pretty small business, and he does all the buying for a very specialized product, and he just doesn't trust anybody else that he could train them and help them understand, you know, what to buy from his supplier. So he does all the buying. And before he implemented our application, he was spending 35 hours a week doing nothing but placing purchase orders and working with his vendors. With the advent of this tool in his life, that now is down to like 6 or 8 hours per week. And so we asked him, well, what's he doing with the extra time? And for him, it meant spending more time on his boat. So, you know, sometimes it's not just a cash impact or a finance impact. Sometimes it's a quality of life impact for some of our customers. And I thought that's kind of a cool story. So, and this is the tool that freed up that time and got him, you know, more time on the water fishing. So if you don't mind, just a couple of quick quotes from some of our users, and then we'll wrap this up. You know, this is a guy, Jay Livingston, who's used other demand planning forecasting tools in the past, and then became a customer of ours. And so we really liked his perspective and the fact that he was able to compare this to others that he's used and really thinks it's the best he's seen. This guy, Leo Grant, talks about that visibility issue, right? The visual presentation, and gives our team a nice shout out for our support and implementation, which is great, and I concur. We've got some really experienced, high quality, world-class inventory gurus on our team that are deploying this for us. And then a final one from Janine here, just a quick metric. In the first few months of using the tool, freed up 38% of their excess inventory. I mean, that's unbelievable. I don't know what the hard numbers were, if that was $1 million worth or $5 million or what that number was, but whatever it was, that's impactful, right? And it doesn't say what that multiplier effect was, but I'm going to ask Janine when I get the chance next time. What did I do? What did you do with that extra cash? And what other initiatives did that help you drive in the organization? So some nice quotes there. So thanks again for your attendance. I think that covers in about 45 minutes everything that I wanted to really talk about. Really appreciate you setting aside some time today to have me discuss this with you. Really want to thank our hosts, FMT. I can tell you, as you saw in the bio there when we started, I've been in this game a long time, and I work with a lot of different ERP business partners around the country, and I really respect what FMT is doing to serve their customers and build their practice. They're just very professional, really solid, and I think this theme of helping businesses accelerate their decision making is absolutely right on point. Right, the world has gotten so competitive, and you just simply have to be nimble. And you can't be nimble if you don't have the data, if you don't really understand what's going on and know it quickly. You just have to be able to try things, measure them quickly, and adjust or course correct as you go. And that's all about data analytics and proper tools. And so I just think this whole thing is totally on point. And I'm really, I was very excited to be invited to be a part of the presentation. So thankful for the opportunity to present and to partner with FMT. I encourage you to attend tomorrow's session, day 3 of the series with Darren, talking again about how to take all this stuff and accelerate your decision making. I'm sure that's going to be a great presentation. If you missed yesterday's, I would encourage you to get the recording and give that a share. If this was interesting to you and there's others on your team, when the recording becomes available, I would encourage you to share it amongst your team. And then so finally, you see my contact information there. I'd love to schedule a personalized conversation with you, a product demo, or answer any questions you may have with each one of you. I'd be happy to do that anytime, and maybe we can help you, as we like to say, hashtag ditch the spreadsheets. So reach out directly to me or to your FMT contacts if that makes sense for you. Lucas, I'll turn it back over to you to see if there's any questions before we wrap it up.
Perfect. Thanks, Russ. That was an awesome webinar. We do have 2 questions, so I'll just read them off right here. If we are new to demand planning, what benchmark should we use to compare forecasting accuracy to? And does NetStock provide those benchmarks?
If we're new to forecasting, yeah. So I think there's a couple of points there, and actually one's really timely. We have been presenting some content at conferences recently as last week at another event, where we talk about the maturity life cycle of the organization as it relates to planning. And there's a I'm lacking the right word. There's a continuum, I guess, but you might be somewhere along that continuum. You might be just starting, you might be very sophisticated, or somewhere in the middle on that spectrum. And so where you are has to be understood, and then what's the appropriate tool and use of a tool to meet where you are, and then how to get you to the next level. So that's a great topic of conversation for us. I think what's nice about the NetStock application is it's kind of like peeling away an onion. So, and to some degree, similar to what you might talk about a Microsoft productivity tool like Excel, right? You can get basics done, or with Word, you can get an email or a letter out. But if you want to do a newsletter with graphics and columns and all that kind of stuff, you might want to take a class and learn more, spend some more time. But you can get started and get some value quickly. And I think the NetStock app lends itself to that as well. The other aspect of that is just having enough history to see what the patterns are. If you're a seasonal business and it's clearly seasonal, then obviously you want to have more than a year's worth of data if you can, so that you can start to see those seasonal patterns, and our algorithms will pick up on those. If you're not seasonal, even 3 to 6 months worth of history of sales of a product is enough to get the algorithms going, and over time they continue to get more and more accurate with the more data they have. So I think that might be part of the question as well. As seasonal businesses, we like to have a year's worth of data, And sometimes if you're moving, let's say you're implementing NetSuite today, but you came off of a legacy application, oftentimes we can grab historical data from that legacy app, get it up into our cloud as a snapshot, as a starting point, and then convert over the day-to-day capture of data from NetSuite now going forward. So sometimes that gives us enough historical information to build valid forecasts and build some trends. Hopefully that helped answer the question.
Yep, thank you for that, Russ. We got a couple more here. Can you talk really quickly about the NetSuite NetStock integration?
Sure, it's pretty straightforward. We built what we call data extract scripts. So we're using tools to go grab the data from the back end of the database from NetSuite and send it up into our private cloud where we do all of our metrics and present the dashboard. The items that we write back into NetSuite, we're using the APIs and the web services functionality of NetSuite to do that. And so typically that's for sure an open purchase order. So that order schedule that I showed you, there's a button on the bottom that you couldn't see where you click the button and it creates an output file that then the APIs and the web services and NetSuite go grab automatically and create the open purchase order. We also have the ability to create transfer orders in a centralized distribution environment where I've got a hub and spoke warehouse kind of concept and or work tickets if it's something that I make instead of buy. So we have the ability to send transactions back into NetSuite via the APIs.
Awesome. And then we got a twofold question here for you. Is NetStock implemented by FMT or it's open to other channel partners? And how long does it take to implement and get ramped up on NetStock?
Yeah, great question. The implementation actually is handled by NetStock. Again, we've got decades worth of experience and really deep domain knowledge, not only of this tool, but just of the planning concepts and so forth. So we are responsible for all of the deployment, implementation, and support of the application directly. The role for a partner like FMT, I think, is in the area I mentioned, some of the change management, sometimes in some data cleanup. There may be some things that we expose in our tool where I've got some data corruption or invalid data. We test about 50 different items actually as part of our process and give you a score and a report back that measures the quality of the data. So we're looking for things like negative on-hand quantities, price less than cost less than zero, et cetera. I think there's literally 50 plus data elements that we look at. So a partner could play a big role in helping with the data cleanup process as we expose that. But the application itself, we deploy. And I think our typical timeline, it depends on the nature of the organization, how big it is, how many people we're training, how complex it is, are we doing manufacturing and assembly or not. We've had them go as quickly as 2 weeks up and running and placing orders, but more commonly, I think 4, 6, sometimes in a manufacturing environment, 8 weeks. It would be our target, and that's really driven mostly by the end user, not by us. We'll move as quickly as the customer can take.
Great answer, Russ. And this one, another question popped up, and it may need some more discovery, but will NetStock be affordable cost-wise for a lifestyle business generating about $2 to $3 million per year?
Interesting. Yeah, so if I extrapolate 2 to 3 million in revenue, that means maybe $200,000 to $300,000 worth of inventory. The nice thing about the model that we have in our subscription pricing is it scales based on the value of the inventory. So if someone is at that $250,000 worth of inventory, perhaps, or maybe $500,000 worth of inventory, it's going to be one price for a monthly or annual subscription. And if it's 5 million or 10 million in inventory, it's going to be a higher price. And so it scales based on the size of that inventory. I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but if I had to guess, I'd say that $250,000 worth of inventory might be something like, $400 or $500 a month. So, really strong return on investment, very affordable.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Russ. And I think that wraps up our Q&A session for now.
Okay.
One last thank you to Russ. We greatly enjoy your insight, expertise around this inventory planning, forecasting, demand planning. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email at ldarling@FMT Consultants or russgraff@russ@netstock.co. We will be following up with all the attendees after the webinar, so feel free to ask at that time. We do truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us, and we hope to see you tomorrow on part 3 of our 3-day webinar series, Accelerate Your ERP Decision Making. Have a great day and see you in the future.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for FMT's presentation of the third installment of our three-day webinar series this week. My name is Lucas Darling, and I'm an account executive here at FMT Consultants, and I'm joined by FMT's very own VP of Sales and Marketing, Darren Stordahl. If at any point during the presentation you guys have questions or have comments, feel free to put them in the box on the right side navigation page, and we'll be following up after. We'll now shoot it over to Darren to lead you through the webinar. Darren.
Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. We're going to talk about decision making today. For those of you that don't know, I'm Darren Stordahl, Vice President here at FMT Consultants. If you would like to reach out to me later, my information is on the screen. Always happy to talk to folks and see what we can do to build a little better business together. So our goal for today is to really establish how a modern ERP solution is fundamental to effective decision making. Let's consider the power of informed decisions and the risks we see when we lack accurate information. It's good to have technology. It's good to have current technology. It's better when that technology is helping us build our business. In the last quarter, FMT worked with several discrete manufacturing organizations, and they supply imagine air quotes here, a large international online marketplace, end of air quotes. As part of doing business, these suppliers have the potential to participate in dynamic promotions, very specific, high visibility, and these promotions can drive monthly sales spikes, according to the folks that we've spoken with, in excess of 1,000%, 1,000%. They need to know, is this a good thing? More revenue, more business, or a bad thing? Oh, it's going to hit my returns. I don't have the inventory. It's going to cause shipping delays. It's going to break my brand. Sometimes they have a few days to decide to participate or defer. What if your business had the opportunity to deliver 6 months of sales in a single month, but you and your team needed to make that decision in a matter of hours or days, not weeks, not months? Would you have the information you needed to make a quality decision? Could you scale to meet production demands? What impact would it have on inventory, backlog, distribution? Could you activate your own suppliers in a way that would allow you to participate? Could you do it? Could you do it with confidence? And could you do it again and again if presented with the same opportunity? Business information, not data, is the lifeblood of any enterprise. And too often it's distributed around the organization. It's in a legacy accounting system. I'm not going to name names. We all know what they might be. Partially implemented point of sale. If you have multiple locations, things may be distributed and not back to a center for management, probably in Excel, might be in a stack of labels sitting on a forklift somewhere in a warehouse, could be on your sales manager's laptop, and he's in Dubuque. So all of those things together limit our ability to get quality data, and without quality data, you can't have useful information. Useful information is required to make informed decisions. Informed decisions allow you to compete consistently, effectively within the range of your business's ability to execute, drive growth, drive profitability. At FMT, we work together with all of our clients and partners, emphasis on partners, because there are some really, really good ones out there that we work with to deliver integrated solutions that accelerate the quality of your decision making and drive real value for you and your customers. One thing I wanted to call out in this presentation, I had the opportunity to work years ago with one of San Diego's kind of hallmark companies, Fair Isaac, they're now called FICO, as a consultant. And part of their go-to-market involved a discussion on the power of decision. I encourage anyone that's interested to take a look at Fair Isaac, just from a philosophical point of view, because the content that they've pioneered has really helped to drive effective enterprise decision-making overall. Also, a quick shout out to James Taylor. Sounds like the musician, spelled the same, but a different guy. And he is really a pioneer in enterprise decision management. He has a blog. If you're interested, it's at jtonedm.com or jtonedm.com. Good stuff, useful. All right, at the center of everything that we do, is increasing value for our clients. It's what FMT is all about. Our goal is to help you get the most value out of every aspect of your business's technology. We don't want to come in, implement an ERP, and walk away. That's not our approach. It's not what we do. What we want to do is look holistically at your business, find ways to optimize all of the component pieces in a way that helps accelerate your decision making, really drive determinant value out the end. And whether it's ERP plus CRM is better, ERP plus CRM plus WMS plus Commerce Engines plus Advanced Planning, CPM, BI, we can use acronyms a long time, but the whole point is that we're trying to drive better information to that point of decision. When we look at kind of the machinery of and how we approach it, is we always keep our clients at the center. We're going to focus right now primarily on finance and operations, which includes financial management, order management, supply management, but it's adjacent to customer engagement. So Salesforce, active sales engagement, CRM, lead nurturing, marketing automation is a big component of this, pipeline management, both upstream and downstream, so from suppliers all the way through distribution, information technology. In general, right-sizing your licensing is a good approach, making sure the infrastructure is in place to be able to support a qualified ERP implementation makes it possible for companies to collaborate more effectively. Data security is fundamental, and making sure that you're not spending more than you need to on licensing. Business intelligence, driving that information to the point of decision through data visualization, charts, graphs, tools, business insights, which are extracted from connected systems, and then overall simplified management of your business. Data is great. Information that's useful allows you to make decisions. And always, of course, you have customer support available, because once a system is alive, it changes because business needs change, people change, capacity increases. You want to make sure that you're getting the very most out of your investment in any technology platform. So disparate data and the role of ERP. Issues impacting data quality. Manual processes. We see this a lot in companies that are manufacturing, distributing, moving product, especially discrete manufacturing. They have disconnected systems. It's hard to bring new systems online, and lack a clear business purpose to the systems that are in place. To make data useful, to actually transform data into immediately useful information, is a significant value realized from ERP implementations. So ERP, it's at the start, it's at the foundation. Having a good solution that is scalable, that is robust, that is cloud-based, allows you to access and collect disparate data. First step. Convert that data into information is the second. Using that information to drive intelligent business decisions is what we all really pursue, and is fundamental to today's webinar. Every back office system or process can improve or degrade the quality of our information and the resulting impact our decisions have on the business. Activating a world-class ERP solution, like those from our friends at NetSuite, from Microsoft, allows businesses to minimize mistakes. So we all do our best. The more manual processes we have, the more mistakes get into our data. Manage demand variability so that we know how to calibrate our supply chain and a delivery mechanism regardless of what it is that we produce. Services are in this as well. Shorten response times, increase visibility into supply chain performance and overall financial health, improve collaboration across the team and across business units, support regulatory compliance, which is a big one. We see this specifically in life sciences, but it does affect customer information, product quality, whether it's internal or external regulatory compliance, a big part of a quality ERP implementation, and adapt to fast-changing market conditions, which we all deal with and we're in every single day. However, implementing an ERP is not just turning it on. We need to really look at how we address the issues of data quality. And much like at diamonds have 4 C's. Wanted a little memorable device here. So where diamonds are color, clarity, carat, and color and clarity. There's 4 of them, I'm sure of it. There's 4 C's of data quality as well. Data needs to be current. Information must be delivered to the point of decision, that moment where a business needs to make an informed and time-sensitive choice. It doesn't help to get it a day late, doesn't help to get it 2 weeks late, doesn't actually help to get it too early either. However, latency is the enemy, and manual processes and last month's reports don't keep a modern business in a high-performing state. Delayed decisions wreak havoc with business management. Data needs to be current. Second, data needs to be constant. A business relies on information to be consistently available, dependable, and really evergreen. Once in a while accuracy, and we all deal with this, we do a heavy lift, we get all the reporting in, great, we got it all in, and 2 weeks later we deliver it. Certainly not in the current company I'm in. Previous companies may have done that. Accuracy means once upon a time realization of business objectives. They can't be imaginary, they have to be real. Correct, accuracy counts. Inaccurate data impacts decision making and lowers confidence in the results. So lower confidence means less action across your teams, lower production, and substandard business results. And for data to be useful, it must be complete. Having half the story isn't helpful. The more insight we have into business performance, the better our decisions could be. Connected systems, so beyond ERP, that publish useful information from across the supply chain create new business opportunities. And we expose that in our world, in diminishing and reducing disparate data with a very structured approach to unwinding kind of a complex array of associated systems. As we work through our process of engagement, we start with analysis. We'll talk about that just a little bit more later. Your current system, current systems, your required business processes, the decisions that those drive. That contributes to a design that is efficient, that's practical, works the way you guys need to work. This is important overall. It doesn't help to have technology turned on that you don't use. It creates noise in the system, but you want it to be scalable so that when you're ready to use it, it's available to you. We develop, deliver, test, and deploy to make sure that everything is working. Activation, once the system's on, systems plural are on and working the way you need them to work. They need to be populated with content and information, reports to drive the decision, which yields a value realization post go live once it's adopted and the training is fully in place. We start out with the IT audit or an assessment over the first stages of the engagement. Managed user acceptance testing is fundamental. It's not helpful to just ad hoc work through test scenarios. We want to make sure that each workflow, each decision point is documented, tested, and that the information is delivered to that point of decision. Project management throughout makes sure that there's an auditable trail of work, processes, approvals, so everyone stays in a state of consistent collaboration across the implementation process. And we love our customer care team. Our clients do as well. It's a way to make sure that throughout the engagement and post-engagement, there's a consistent, predictable way to track issues, to address enhancement requests, make sure those are organized, support training, and then post-go live to make sure there's a constant backplane to get the very, very most out of the implementation. All of this gets useful information into the organization. And a big part of that when we're looking at ERP is, again, it's a core building block. Without an effective ERP solution, it's very, very difficult to drive the financial performance of a business, drive profitability, look at forecasting. Great opportunity there for most mid-sized companies, ones that want to compete effectively, increase visibility across the organization and transparency, and drive more efficient operations. Earlier this week, there were 2 other webinars. Both were on point. Our own Paul Clayton presented one. The good folks over at NetSuite presented the other. And we'll be revisiting some of that content here. But again, to underscore what it is that ERP can provide when accurately implemented, quality inventory management. So you get a single version of the truth. When we talk about data quality and consistency, that single version is fundamental in being able to make decisions with confidence. The bill of material and routing materials that we look at eliminate production line delays and allow us to drive efficiencies in production so that we know on the distribution side what our capacity can be, what our flexibility can be, so that we can manage throughput efficiently, eliminating that overpromise, under-deliver issue, which impacts customer sat, and reduces overall inaccurate inventory counts and valuation. Resource planning, it's two of the letters in ERP. Clearly, being able to manage resources throughout the supply chain, build resources, human resources, capacity resources, financial resources, allows a business to really, really drive forward effectively. No more write-offs, no more unreliable reporting. When we look at demand planning, this one is really exciting, and a lot of companies that are moving from second or third tier ERPs are excited to be able to really start looking at how their business and their customers interact. And the idea here is that we're reducing excess inventory, increasing productivity, and inventory turns. A few weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas for an expo, and it was a manufacturing expo in the furniture space. Talked to a few of our clients about what their current challenges are. And some are in the process of activating a new ERP system. Some are working on warehouse management systems. Some are not yet at either point. But a big part of the discussion was the availability of warehouse space. And when they're looking at overall business expense, spinning up a new warehouse is high on their list. If they could make better use of their existing space through efficiencies, through being able to forecast correctly, through really structured demand planning that allows that optimization of orders all the way up through the suppliers. That visibility means they can make decisions on warehouse resources, staffing, additional technology investments that are practical, that are prudent, and that are really efficient for their overall business performance. Sales forecasting, near and dear to my heart in the world of sales, systematic. So we've all been in the room where say, well, what do you think it's going to be? And somebody says, well, I think it's going to be 13% up, and someone else says, I think it's going to be 5% down, and it's in the use of systems with quality information integrated in that we're able to do a more appropriate systematic forecasting based on accurate data, becoming useful information at the point of decision to say, how are we going to plan our resources based on what we anticipate is going to happen from a sales perspective. Automated alerts are it's a system utility. Those things are great. But the most important thing is we can replicate it as a business, in your business, using ERP systems that are accurately implemented to drive decision-making to the point of decision. Every time you have a forecasting call or forecasting meeting, the inputs are consistent, they're constant, they're current, they're the same, which means that you're not running your business in vibration, making it consistent over time. Finance and accounting, also, this is fundamental, absolutely fundamental to a quality ERP. It's more than Excel, it's more than spreadsheets, dashboards, metrics, and scorecards so that we can watch performance over time as business leadership. Ad hoc reporting is fundamental as well because there are exceptional situations where you need to extract information to make a decision at a point in time and can't be constrained by the system. Advanced analytics allow us to make associations and look beyond the most basic. And the best part is it's all in a unified platform. So it allows us to connect other systems or expand the suite of available resources, example, in the NetSuite platform, to really drive effective and efficient business decision making. Let's talk about that decision making. Informed decisions. So decision precision, accuracy. Accuracy matters. Precision addresses effectiveness of a decision, not efficiency. All right. Precise decisions use highly activated information to target the precise business value or outcome you want to obtain. Precise business decisions will typically involve various financial outcomes such as profit, expense ratios, customer lifetime value, revenue losses, as well as the accuracy of predictions, comprehensiveness of factors involved, and a level of granularity. So decision effectiveness, financial impact, customer value, planning accuracy, precise decisions allow precise action. Consistency. So it focuses on making decisions that are integrated and coordinated across the enterprise, not in silos, but connected. Because the enterprise, the business, a small business, has multiple different business units, business processes that are interdependent. And if they are connected and integrated, and that integration is something that the operational team is aware of, the controllers are aware of, action can be coordinated across the entire enterprise, and it can be focused on your enterprise. So it's not something that is constrained into a unique model that you have to squeeze yourself into. Good system with quality decision making allows you to make integrated, coordinated decisions for your business across your business. Because we want to go fast, and we want to go quickly, and we want to turn and pivot. The market changes, competitors change. To move a business well, to redirect with intent, not just be bounced around, means we need to have that decision making, that information at the point of decision on how much does it cost for us to introduce a new product line? How much time will it take for us to activate a new distributor or plug into a new EDI program so that we can fuel our downstream demand generation? How responsive can we be to market demands, competitive inroads, changes in supply, changes in demand, while maintaining fundamental stability so that our team and team members are confident in execution. Cost control. Activity-based costs, cost of data collection and analysis, cost of system resources, cost of human resources. When we talk about each silo being connected, or each business unit being connected, they're connected by what they produce, the information they produce, the information they consume, but also by resource load. Being able to forecast correctly what it takes to be agile, to move and react in a competitive market space, also requires this practical assessment of what is the cost and the cost-benefit analysis. And that can't take months. It needs to take weeks. It needs to take days. It needs to be on a dashboard if it's something that is a repeated decision that happens consistently over time. And speed kills. For ourselves here at FMT, it's one of the things that we talk about on the regular. Going faster. Going faster helps. Going faster is important. Going faster allows us to compete. It allows us to service our clients more effectively. It allows us to move through complex decisions based on good information. How fast can you go is dependent on the quality of the data, fueling useful information, creating informed decisions so that you can move quickly through planning cycles so you can close the books. You look at elapsed process times. There's a lot of metrics in here. They're your metrics. Are there delays caused by waiting for data? And if you say, yes, that's true today, or there's delays caused by finding and validating the data is accurate, if there are delays caused by people that aren't in place or aren't in a position to help drive a decision forward, all of those things can be addressed through the process of bringing quality technology on board for your company. And that increases the value of your own decision making. NetStock sourced this, and it was a reference to the ability to reduce inventory by 38% in just the first few months. The implication is by increased insight into the business, increased ability to make decisions better visibility into demand planning, supply planning, that this company at Stingray could really optimize their use of warehouse space, really manage their inventory. If they were knocking against headroom, to be able to say, wow, I reduced it by 38%, I can use my same facility and still grow, is a phenomenal business advantage. And if they're in a competitive situation, it doesn't take much to extrapolate the associated benefit of being able to take full use of your existing infrastructure. One of our own clients, Selecta, moved to NetSuite. They manufacture different types of organic membranes, multiple industrial sectors around the globe, and filters things. Consolidated multiple systems and manufacturing locations, developed an accurate version-tracked BOM master table, efficient work order, production process, and increased systematic controls to supply chain processes. Lots of separate silos, lots of disconnected data. By bringing those all together, the business management for Selecta was able to look at their business in totality, make business decisions with informed information, and compete more effectively. So we talked a little bit earlier about our goal for today was to establish how a modern ERP solution is fundamental to effective decision making. We touched on a few philosophical concepts, lightly philosophical, the 4 C's. We also talked about what drives effective enterprise decisions and the aspects of those, which can either be subjective or objectively measured. We're going to talk a little bit about next steps that we would recommend and we encourage you to take, because we would very much like to work with each and every one of you that's on the call here. Our first step, if you think back to that chevron graph, is we'd like to schedule an assessment. In our case, it's we come in, we look at data repositories, we look at workflows, we look at integration requirements. We really understand what your IT infrastructure is and make sure that the business trajectory and the technical infrastructure are in alignment. We map the core business processes as part of a detailed project plan, and we identify the decision criteria so that we can deliver the information to the people that need to make a decision when they need to make that decision consistently over time, make sure that licensing is correct for both new systems and for existing technology, and present that recommended technology and implementation approach. It's pretty straight ahead. It's proven to be effective. It's a great way to start on your journey to improving overall enterprise decision making. And if you'd like to reach out to us, the number for that is 760-930-6400. Or you can send me an email. I'd be happy to connect you with our consultants or sales team to help move things forward. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Lucas.
Yep, thanks, Darren, and appreciate all the insight. And that wraps up our 3-day webinar series. Everybody who held in there, thank you very much. If you have any other questions, we will be following up with everybody after this webinar, or you can shoot me an email at ldarling@fmtconsultants.com. We truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. There's no more webinar tomorrow, so we won't see you tomorrow. But thank you very much, and have a great weekend.